It was in the, 70s, 80s when things were good for a while, but then they got rocky in the 80s and business wasn't easy, like, you know. People are not afraid of money now. You used to call people very careful. People would save up before they'd buy things, or they'd never take a thing out until they hadn't paid for it.
Business on High Street was sometimes affected by events beyond Ireland.
I remember during the Korean War, and you couldn't give blankets away. People had the money. When the war started, all prices of commodities went to hell, and blankets that we say you get for 30 shillings went to £5, and that was the problem. And it was a bad time, the Korean War. Things were hard, like money wasn't around.
Jim had known a Tractor Norris all his life. When he joined the family business, their paths crossed again.
We used to go to dances, and we used to go to pictures maybe 2 or 3 nights a week, and it was strange. She always picked me up and brought me home, which everyone thought was the quaintest thing in God's earth. They couldn't understand how I'd have to be driven home, that I couldn't drive her home. But my father never drove, and I never drove.
Jim and a Tractor married and moved into the flat above the drapery store.
When we got married, the rooms were there, and said, why the hell not use them? So we did them up. It was a fine big room. You could look out on High Street. I went up for my lunch, went up for my tea, and you never got your feet wet. And you were having your tea and you heard a knock at the door, you'd want to look out the window because it could be a fella who would tell you he was at confession, but was obviously not at confession, but was in a hostel rehab, had imbibed with too much, wanted to wear trousers. Well, no, you couldn't sell the trousers to a fella in that condition. So after 1 or 2 bad episodes, unless I knew the person, I never came down.
Life on High Street was not only tough for traders. Kilkenny's brewery workers also struggled.
But the times was terrible hard that time. No one had nothing to do, no. There were no hands out that time, no door or anything in them early days. No, there were near tea break at that time. No, or near a week's holidays. No. Well, there were a man sacked for drinking tea. One of the bosses said he must be at it a long time. He had a flask. The bosses at that time, a lot of them had no understanding either, do you know. They were strict at that time. Sure, you put your hand on a guy's shoulder, you get a couple of months. You'd be after giving them having a salt to them, do you know? Sure, I used to be fool acting all the time. There was so much on the town for singing, for shouting. So that's why I gave up the singing.
Behind Kilkenny's grandeur lies a reputation as a party town. It wasn't always that way.
Tourism hadn't really established itself in Ireland back then. You were looking to see an English tourist travelling by car, coming anywhere in the country. The medieval capital of Ireland. But who knew it was the medieval capital of Ireland? No one.
To attract tourists, Kilkenny had to offer something different.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The beer festival took place usually on the June bank holiday weekend. This encouraged anything up to 60,000 visitors to the city. Now, 60,000 people is a phenomenal amount of people. I mean, this is unreal. It brought families, everybody, to a huge beer tent where there you had a Bavarian band, all full of life, blasting out jazz music and band music.
do remember when we were quite young that we were allowed over there for a couple of hours. Our parents were quite insistent that we be back by a certain time, and we were back. But we could still lie in bed and listen to the music. It was lovely.
Pat Shortis had always loved music, and he played at the beer festival.
We had a little band then, and we used to go around with nurses out of St. Canice's and visit all the pubs in the night. We collect from, but they'd go to for the patients, like they'd have dues after, you know.
While Pat Shortis collected money for charity, Frank Kavanagh helped out in the beer tent.
I remember well, it was £1. I had 8 tankers of beer for £1. I went up, got the beer. I could not for the life of me find the person who took the order for the beer. And on the way back down, like, someone had shouted, and you had 1,000 people in this tent. So I gave it to somebody else on the way down. And I remember well, like, handing back all the money and saying, the money was going into a box, right? And I just said, my God, you know, this is brilliant, this is great, this is wonderful. So this lifted Kilkenny completely. It brought everybody. I mean, the place to be was Kilkenny. In those days, you could walk down the main street, tripping over people. No one got hurt. It wasn't rough. The Kilkenny Beer Festival put Kilkenny on the map in the beginning for all the right reasons.
Unfortunately, like in Ireland, we're not able to handle drink to excess, and it got a bit out of hand.
And the beer festival was discontinued due to all the drinking that went on. And in fact, it's like a child's tea party in comparison to what's going on now.
The beer festival eventually had a makeover. Now Kilkenny's Arts Festival reigns supreme, and there were more dramatic changes in store for High Street. In June 1970, a fire broke out in one of the oldest shops on High Street. Frank Kavanagh was called in to help.
I was with what we termed the auxiliary fire service. My dad was also fighting the fire, so was my brother, Michael. We found the entire building of Smithwick's collapsed. So here you had a huge area covering almost a quarter of a mile, just completely gutted. As a young fella, you must think there was a sense of fear when you were going into a building that could collapse. I felt a sense of sadness at that time, of course, as well, because suddenly you felt, here is the heart of our main street. Will it be rebuilt, or what's going to happen to it?
It was an awful loss. It was just devastating to see the place been gutted, absolutely gutted. And it was an awful sense of loss, you know, to all of us, all the business people on High Street, because it was the place for anything we needed, we'd run across the Smithwicks.
Many shop fronts were modernised after the fire. Some question whether High Street has lost its heart.
We haven't lost our sense of character in Kilkenny, but I think what's held us together, and I mean this sincerely, is our sport. Our sport is the only factor that has forever kept the people of Kilkenny intact. You can relate to your greatest enemy in Kilkenny, if you have one, and talk about sport. And he or she will talk forever. By golly, we can drum up a conversation that will carry on forever.
Kilkenny, champions of 1992.
92, we'd won Ireland after 10 years. We were waiting for nearly to win one. An old fella came in that morning, about 82 or 83, cap on the side of his head to buy a shirt at 9 o'clock. Now, he didn't need a shirt, but he wanted to talk hurling. So he came and he spent a half an hour buying the shirt. He was going out the door and he turned back and he put his 2 elbows on the counter, a big smile in his face, and he looked up at Jack and he said, God, lad, says she wouldn't want to fire for the winter after it. I never heard a better description of what it means to people.
The first All-Ireland I was at was 1931. Well, the money was scarce that time. You'd be saving up to go to an All-Ireland. All the dogs in the street would be following you with all the sandwiches you'd have under your arm going up to the station.
the town would be electric. And we met the team the next night, and they were, I don't think I put my feet on the ground between the railway station, which was dangerous actually, but not like the excitement. Oh God, it was electric. There were fellas in there that probably weren't in town since the last election or the last time we won in All-Ireland. And the whole atmosphere of the county, even customers coming in, they'd buy anything off you for the week afterwards.
When you look at the homecomings in Kilkenny, I mean, it brings everybody out. Suddenly they come into town and they're on the top of a bus with the McCarthy Cup aloft. And you're saying to yourself, like, God, you know, isn't it great? Then it's gone past you. And you're saying, what do we do about next year, lads?
Sport is not the only thing to hold Kilkenny's fighting spirit intact.
It's not just an electrical shop, no, it's a shop that there's always a welcome on the mat for everybody to come through my door. And there'll always be time, because I'm not run off my feet, but there'll always be time to talk to people. At times, I wonder, is there a magnet on the door? Because a day every week, I have everyone with the problems of the world come in. It makes one feel very humble when somebody says to you, thanks very much, Anne, for talking to me. I mean, this is where I feel we've lost the run of ourselves from years past. Nobody has time to talk.
Anne Ryan's passion for local community issues has pushed her into action.
I'm proud